Don't get me wrong, I love Starfield. I've played well over 100 hours and counting, especially doing some exploration and discovering interesting new planets. But there has always been something that's really been bothering me ever since we've gotten to see concept images of the game's actual landing zones there, and that is their size, the size of its settlements actually, which despite this boasting that the cities in their space RPG are their biggest ever. The reality is that Aquila City, the capital city of the Freestar Collective, looks like a small village from the far west at best, not really what you would imagine from the seat of power of an interstellar faction. And the same can be said for New Atlantis, the alleged largest city of the Settle system, which can be easily crossed on by foot from side to side. These cities, or villages at this point, are indeed rather lackluster compared to what one would imagine they ought to be. And yes, I've read all the comments about why they don't need realistically large cities in Starfield because we wouldn't have to interact with them anyway, and that it would create a lot of space where players wouldn't go. And here's where I disagree. As much as a proper sense of scale gives an impression of immersion, a wrong scale will in return break that immersion, and that is the problem I have here with cities in Starfield. They aren't at the scale they should be, and that, in my opinion, is immersion breaking. And this becomes all the more obvious when you take a look at the scale of the settlements of Star Citizen, which range from the smallest of outposts to cities covering an entire planet. And yes, in Star Citizen you can't enter most buildings, but who cares? In real life you don't enter every building you see either. In fact, you can't, so it shouldn't even be an issue here, but you really get that sense of scale, the feeling of just being one tiny individual going about their business among millions of other people doing exactly the same thing across not only the place you are at, but the entire game universe. And that is not only going to apply for the game's ludicrously large cities, but the upcoming outposts and settlements as well that are going to be gradually rolled out throughout the course of next year. Now, if we look at these new settlements, we can see that their size can be rather large, as we can even identify roads and streets between their many houses and installations. These are going to be real communities where players will be able to find shops, workshops, farms, and even some production facilities. In fact, some of these settlements can even seem to surpass Aquila City in terms of size, which really puts Starfield to shame in my opinion, and shows how much Bethesda's latest RPG is outdated, technologically speaking. And that is not all. From what we have learned and seen during the last season con, it does seem like these settlements will also feature some degree of destructibility, as the footage here seems to suggest. Of course, we don't know at this stage what will be destructible and what will not, nor if those places will be rebuilt after a certain period of time if nobody goes there. Unfortunately, environmental destruction and therefore settlement destruction is not possible in Starfield, which I think is a shame because it's just going to be one of those feel-good moments when you go to a hostile location to kill everyone and burn everything to the ground. Another element that makes Starfield pale in comparison to Star Citizen when we take a look at their settlement here is the sheer lack of diversity of the buildings you encounter, which do come in different sizes but often all look the same and often end up being the same wherever you go, no matter on which planet you land. And the result is, it doesn't matter how many different settlements you have in your game if they all end up looking the same, because then they get boring and repetitive very quickly. What's important is the amount of assets created for these settlements, and here again it seems that Star Citizen developers have nailed it, creating an incredible roster of various buildings for various purposes within the same style, the Frontier style here in this case, and just like with Starfield's outpost, Star Citizen settlements will use procedural generation for the creation of these outposts, but because the asset number here is far greater, the algorithm Cloud Imperial game uses will be able to come up with a far more diverse and believable results, as we could see in last week's presentation. And that is the end of today's video. Thank you so much for watching. If you like today's content, I would be immensely grateful if you could help out with YouTube's own algorithm by pressing that like button, and also telling me in the comment section down below your thoughts on these settlements. Perhaps you have something to add or you don't agree with what I said. Don't be shy, tell me everything. Also, a big shout out to my Patreon and YouTube members who make this content possible, including Deplorable Infidel, Zero Crusher, and Dr. Forbin. If you too want to help out, the link is in the description down below. I have been Irad. I wish you guys a wonderful day, and I will see you guys in the next one.